Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Sherrit here. Legend of Korra's biggest wasted potential. If you're an Avatar: The Last Airbender fan, you have of course heard of Legend of Korra. And there's also a very high possibility you watched it. Opinions on the show are mixed, to say the least. When I watched it, I wanted to like it. At the beginning of every season, I was hyped, but the payoff was never as good. At the end, I realized that the characters weren't even close to the ones of The Last Airbender. The world and setting had no sense of awe, and the sense of adventure was almost totally gone. So yeah, I kinda belong to the group that says Legend of Korra is a disservice to The Last Airbender as a sequel. But even so, there is something I believe Legend of Korra had, and that was potential. Wasted potential, but still potential. The ideas for the conflicts in Season 1 and 3 were actually okay. Amon was a really cool and really mysterious villain, and the idea of non-benders being against benders was smart writing. The idea of ending the Avatar cycle by a resistant Lotus group, consisting of 4 very powerful benders, even though cliché, was also clever. But at the end of every one of these arcs, you still kind of go, was that it? There were plenty of opportunities for more immersion in the story, but it's never used. Here's an example. Think back to Season 1. One of the bigger conflicts was the whole benders are oppressing non-benders. Wouldn't it have been great to hear a great strong opinion from someone who's a protagonist and also a non-bender? The show doesn't really do that, even though it had enough people to choose from. There was Asami, who just started to hang out with benders, Pema, who is married to a bender and has a lot of airbending children, making her the mother of the whole new airbending civilization, and there was of course Bumi, the non-bending first son of the latest most influential avatar, who was the only non-bender of the entire family. His perspective on the issue could have added more depth to it, but he was only introduced after the problem was kind of solved. And that's not even the only way the character of Bumi could have been used better. Allow me to explain. First, I'll analyze Bumi a bit. He is a free spirit, a bit too free at times, who became the commander of the 2nd Division of the United Forces before he retired. He has achieved great feats as a non-bender, and even claims to have achieved some that not everyone believes. We never see any of these happen, but the one time he does have a moment, you as a viewer will believe it is very likely he accomplished all those impossible feats. However, you will also question if it wasn't just luck that allowed it. When he became an airbender, he wasn't necessarily skilled. He was one of Tenzin's most stubborn students, and he was constantly portrayed as lazy. And in the end of Season 4, he was just amongst the benders as a normal one, as far as I can remember. So how could Bumi have been used better? Let's step a bit back in time. I wasn't a big fan of the idea that Aang neglected his children, but I wasn't against it either. You need something to build a conflict in a story, and if giving a beloved character a bad trait is needed for that, so be it. However, the show only uses it to form a little bit of a squabble between the 3 siblings, and then it ends. So now all we got was a little subplot that needed solving in 2 episodes, and Aang isn't as perfect as we first thought he was. I mean, this whole thing could have been used as a goldmine for conflicts. Allow me to give my argument some ground to stand on. Do you remember when Aang saw a newborn child? And do you remember the way he reacted to it? And that was in the midst of his hard time losing Appa. And now imagine Aang's reaction when seeing a newborn child that isn't only his, but also the one he lost more than anything else, Katara's. Don't you think that he'd be even more in tears? That he would hold a special place in his heart for that boy because it was the first time he felt like that and no other one being born will outperform that emotion? But then time went by and he realized Bumi isn't an airbender. He's not even a bender. I understand Aang would be sad or a bit disappointed because of this, but he wouldn't love him less. The Legend of Korra story went with Aang seeing Republic City as his greater duty. But what if he was so obsessed with reviving the airbending culture, he even started training Bumi in the ways of an airbender? So this would make Bumi a non-bender, who's a great duelist, using a martial arts consisting of airbending-like movements, who would become incredibly powerful if by some chance he ever got the ability to airbend. That does sound a bit familiar, doesn't it? Or think of a time in his life when his siblings were at that age when they learned how to bend. Don't you think sibling rivalry would challenge him in a way that allows him to adapt and acquire skills to go toe-to-toe against the bender as a non-bender? He is the older brother after all, so he would be the dominant one at some point, when Kaya's intensive bending weren't that powerful yet. Wouldn't he try to maintain that status as a kid or teen? Wouldn't those motives allow him to become someone that would have a 50-50 win-lose record against these two powerful benders as a non-bender? And making him adequate enough to have no trouble in battles against regular benders, like another villain the show introduced to us? But hey, Bumi isn't an airbender. But you don't need to be one to be someone who's very spiritual. As far as I know, the guru in Avatar: The Last Airbender wasn't a bender, and he taught Aang new levels of spirituality. And if spirituality is an important part of the airbending culture, why wouldn't Aang also teach Bumi those ways? Ever wondered what would happen if a non-bender opened all his or her chakras? Maybe developing one's spirituality even further would put him or her in a state that would allow him or her to energy bend, and eventually bending someone else's energy, acquiring the ability to remove someone's bending. Perhaps such a person would become upset with the way spirits were neglected, and through obsession would try to find a way to connect humans and spirit together by any means necessary. Like another villain the show had. If Kai is a waterbender, it would make sense that she would have a stronger bond with Katara, as she is also a waterbender. So Bumi's attention from Dad wouldn't be that less. So now, in Bumi's year, he realizes that the father that paid so much attention to him and loves him so much would suddenly shift all that attention to someone else. A new brother who is an airbender, a joy he could never give his father. Maybe this could escalate to him becoming a villain in a well-rounded story. The villains in The Legend of Korra and even The Last Airbender were never fleshed out to the point of sympathy, excluding Azula and Tarlok, but that was only in the last 2 to 3 episodes of their last relevant seasons. And yes, I guess it is debatable if Zuko can be seen as a villain or not. Till now, I've compared the possibility of what Bumi could become to Amon, Unalaq and Zahir. If the writers had tried, they could have made Bumi a villain who's these 3 combined, and also someone we sympathized with. One of the bigger problems Legend of Korra has is that it tried to do too much in 4 seasons. Every season, the problems from the last kinda disappear and new ones were introduced. So focusing the whole series on one film's motives would do the series some good. Bumi wouldn't exactly be all 3 villains at once, of course. He may not have had Zahir's goals for anarchy and the ending of the Avatar cycle, but he could still have his skills in spirituality. He may not have had the will to become a Dark Avatar's Unalaq, but he could have had the strive to connect humans and spirits more. And he may not have been a bloodbender like Amon, but still could have written him in a way that made him want to force equality and give him the abilities to remove people's bending. Taking all these possibilities into account, we could have had a great, well-written, relatable villain. It's a bit of a shame in my opinion. That is all I have to say. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you agree or disagree, feel free to say so in the comment section below, and I will see you next time. Bye!